This is Evangelist George McTire of the Word of God Ministry, and I'm coming to you today with my thoughts on this war that's going on in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. I haven't made any comment about it, even though I have to say it's basically because of the fact I didn't feel it was all that necessary for me to make any comments on it, seeing that a lot of what I was hearing about in the news basically was addressing what I'm about to say, but there's still some things that are left out that need to be said, and why I fully support what Israel is doing. Now, we all know that on October the 7th, waves of Hamas fighters came across the border from Gaza into Israel, and I think they killed over somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 or 1200 people or so. And not only did they come by land, supposedly they came by some sort of gliders or something by air, that they managed to come into Israel and begin killing people and taking hostages and so forth. And the response was from Israel that they declared war on Hamas. And as a result of that, they went on the attack into Gaza. Now, as it stands right now, Israel, and here we are, this happens to be March of the year 2024, so we're looking at almost about 7 months or so of this fighting going on, where at last count I think they said somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 some thousand Palestinians have been killed, and hundreds of thousands or millions of them are starving and everything, and they're destitute, and they're worried about the starvation and thing, people starving to death and so forth. And it seems that everybody wants Israel to cease and desist its war on the Palestinian state for the sole purpose of being humanitarian and naturally standing with the Palestinian people. Our representatives in Washington, in the Congress, and that are also in our neighborhoods, in local levels and so forth. Palestinian people, or people from the Middle East, not all of them are Palestinians, but they all have a common thread, and that is that they're all supposedly Muslims. I'm not going to say that all of them are, but the whole thing is they want Israel to stop, because they're saying Israel is being immoral, or whatever the case, that term that they want to use, and calling it a Holocaust and things on the Palestinians and so forth. And a lot of people are trying to stick with the Palestinians, but then too we have a lot of people that are also sticking with Israel. But the thing is Israel actually uh, guilty of genocide? Yeah, that's the word. Genocide of the Palestinian people. Now, here is where the problem comes in that I haven't heard addressed, but I think it needs to be addressed. When Benjamin Netanyahu said he was declaring war on Hamas, he said he was going to continue the battle until Hamas was not merely defeated but completely wiped out. Now, see, there's a difference between defeating somebody or defeating an enemy and completely wiping them out. If you defeat an enemy, for the most part, you make them where they are incapable of any more aggression towards you. When you wipe the enemy out, that means there's nobody left to even pose a threat to you. And see, this is where we have a problem. While everybody's calling on Israel to stop and let aid come into the camps where the Palestinians have been, basically they've been run out of all their cities and towns, and every place that they go that was what they figure was a safe zone has all of a sudden, after a period of time, become another area where Israel has to go into that area seeking Hamas fighters to basically kill them or get rid of them, and people are saying that is immoral. Well, let's go back and examine a few things here. Now, in times past, when Israel would basically respond to, an occasional rocket or something being fired from Gaza into Israel and possibly injuring or killing some Israelis or so, maybe one or two people or something like that, Israel would respond by going into Gaza and try to retaliate against the Palestinians where they think the rockets were coming from. Because see, this is one of the problems that we have with these Hamas fighters, and that is, number one, they are sneaky, and what they like to do is when they fire these rockets and things, they aren't out on a battlefield or battleground or something like that. No, they go into schools, they go into hospitals, they go up on the roof of the hospitals and the schools and fire rockets into Israel. And see, if Israel were to, say for instance, fire a rockets back to where they know that the original attack came from, they know that these were hospitals and things, so they try to avoid that. And so what they would do is go in and basically storm the hospital or something like that and find where these people, these Hamas fighters were, and deal with them like that. But you see, here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, and this is what I'm addressing on this particular message, and that is this. For all of these times when these Hamas fighters were doing this, Israel was, like I said, being given a measured response. They're not trying to be overly aggressive because they wanted to kind of live in peace with the Palestinian people. But as we find out now, that all this time while Israel was living peacefully with with the Palestinians, Hamas was busy digging underground tunnels all over the area where they were storing weapons, and evidently they were preparing for an eventual attack on Israel. Now, whether these tunnels actually extended into Israel, I don't know about that. But I do know all of these vast, and you've seen them on the news media, all of these tunnels where when they took hostages, they kept them down in these tunnels and things, all dug all up under Gaza and things, to hide their fighters and hide their weapons and so forth, so that if Israel comes in like they normally would to come in on foot, and try to uh, go after wherever they thought the attack was coming from, these fighters and things could come out of these tunnels or hide in the tunnels and try to get Israel surrounded into a middle part of the Gaza or something like that, and then they would come out of these tunnels and kill a lot of Israelis, and then uh, force Israel to have to retreat. So the question then becomes is, what good would it be doing for Israel to cease their attempt to completely eliminate Hamas when they had done it before? Hamas repaid them by setting up this thing for this attack that took place on October the 7th. Now, when it comes down, like I said, these Hamas fighters, they fight using ordinary Palestinians as human shields. In other words, they're in the crowd of innocent Palestinians and fighting Israel. And if Israel comes in and tries to attack them, they're probably going to kill some innocent Palestinians to get after the Hamas fighters. So, what's Israel's response to that? Is to continue to keep going until they eliminate Hamas completely. Now, when it comes down to these Palestinians being labeled, the thousands or so that's been killed, not all of those thousands, 30,000 or so that were killed, are innocent Palestinians. Some of them are Hamas fighters. Now, why do I say this? It's very simple. Because Hamas fighters do not wear anything that identifies them as Hamas fighters. In other words, Israel can't tell who is a Hamas fighter and who is an innocent Palestinian, because to do so would mean you let your guard down, and if you let your guard down, they can take you out. So number one, the fact that people are talking about all of these innocent Palestinians being killed, that, my friends, is on the Palestinian Authority. Now, why do I say that? Well, let's look at the Palestinian Authority for what it is. The Palestinian Authority is the authority that I assume was put in place by the Palestinians. Would that be something that you could agree on? The Palestinians put the Palestinian Authority in place as a spokesperson for those for Palestine. Okay, now the Palestinian Authority either was ignorant of the fact, which I doubt, but the Palestinian Authority allowed Hamas to come in, take up residence in Gaza, and start building these tunnels underground and storing weapons and so forth. So evidently the Palestinian Authority had to know what Hamas was doing. Consequently then, if there's any blame to be laid on anyone for the plight that these Palestinians find themselves in, the blame should be placed on them, because they put this Palestinian Authority in charge, and the Palestinian Authority allowed Hamas to do the things that it was doing. So evidently the Palestinians were going along with it. I mean, Hamas has a history of these types of attacks on Israel in the first place. So consequently, when Hamas wanted to come in, they should have known right off the bat that Hamas was going to spell trouble for them in the long run. Talking about the Palestinians. The mere fact that they allowed it to go on for how many months or years that it took the Palestinians to do all of this stuff, construct all these tunnels and plan their attack on Israel, they should have known that was coming. If they didn't, well, once again, that's on them. And just to be plain and clear, I don't like the idea of innocent people being killed in a war, but you don't have an alternative when you're dealing with situations like what's going on in the Middle East. You know, the United States, when we were attacked by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor, and the way the war was going back in World War II, it wasn't until we dropped the atomic bombs, two atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima and the other one on Nagasaki, I think Japan, that brought the end of World War II. And unfortunately, in those situations, hundreds of thousands of innocent Japanese people, I'll call them innocent because I don't know whether all of the Japanese people were behind the attacks on Pearl Harbor, but the thing is that in order to bring a halt to the aggression that the United States was facing during World War II, the atomic bomb put an end to that before hundreds of thousands, or maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or whatever, or maybe millions or more innocent lives would have been lost if it were not for the United States dropping those bombs. Now, Israel has a responsibility to defend itself, and you can't, time and again has proven, Israel cannot live at peace with Palestine or Palestinians when they have groups within their midst that are hell bent on the total annihilation of Israel. Like we have one representative here from Michigan, Rashida Tlaib, using the term from the river, from the from the from the what's named to the sea, from the land to the sea, or something like that, talking about the fact they want to push Israel into the sea and completely annihilate them. And we got a lot of people that are crying out about the fact of how bad Israel is doing the Palestinians, but nobody is saying anything about the goal that these groups that are in the midst of the Palestinians have against Israel. So until that is settled, then anything that happens to the Palestinians, like it or not, that is on them. And that is the right side. This is Evangelist George McTire saying, good day, may God bless you and your families real good.